listen to the sound and on YouTube or archival. So you can go and visit our past ZENtalk interviews. So ZENtalk, the interview, we're interviewing people who are engaged in Zen practice in one way or another. Some of our guests are not really Zen practitioners, but they have something to offer. And in general, we're trying to expose our audience to what makes people attracted to Zen, why they first start practicing Zen, and why they keep coming back. We think this is an important message to get out to the American public. So we hope you enjoy the show. You can check on our website, www.ascc.org, for Atlanta Soto Zen Center, and investigate our other programs and schedule if you live in the Atlanta area. Or if you're outside the area, you can come for longer retreats, which we hold here. Tonight we have a very special guest. This is Ungan Bill Mayhew of our Jacksonville, Florida affiliate. And Ungan has just recently become what is called a black robe or novice priest. He's been practicing Zen for some time, and we'll get around to your Zen practice a little bit later. But first, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your career. We understand you retired early. You had some relatively early for some people. And I think people are interested, amongst other things, in why people from all different walks of life come to Zen. And so it's a little bit important for them to know about your background, maybe your schooling, if you like, anything like that. Can you start there for us? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I grew up in a little town of Davidson, North Carolina, where Davidson College is located. Went to school there, went in the ROTC program, young second lieutenant, and I got posted to Korea.
Was that during the war?
No, this was in 1966, 65, I guess. The only thing important about that as far as Zen is, for whatever reason, I felt some affinity with that Oriental culture, with the Koreans, and I had the opportunity to go over to Japan a couple times. And for whatever reason, I started collecting Oriental art without any understanding of why. I still don't understand why.
While you were in the military.
Yeah, well, and after I got out of the military, I worked for the man. I started out working for a large insurance company, then a large bank holding company, and then I went with this guy that had a small consulting firm that did all sorts of stuff, insurance, financial planning, director's examinations. We owned a title insurance company and a life insurance company, and just did all kind of stuff. And I went from there to a large insurance company in Jacksonville. I don't know if you want names of these companies.
No, probably not.
But I was a senior officer in the company and president of its property insurance subsidiary.
In Jacksonville, Florida.
In Jacksonville, yeah.
But about what year was that?
83, 84.
Yeah.
So
how long did you stay in that? And
10 years.
So
in Jacksonville.
You retired in the 90s?
Yeah, when I was 55, I was very fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah.
This is one of those, every cloud has a silver lining story. You know, the guy I worked for was a big, loud, traditional manager, the carrot and the stick, a la the 40s and 50s management style. So as soon as I could see my way clear, I started planning for retirement.
I want to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, get the hell out of there. That's right. And things worked out really well. But I was trying to figure out what to do. Well, once you retire, what do you do besides play tennis and go to the club and drink, you know? And so
it never appealed to me. I couldn't see it. I like what I do, so why would I retire? It just never made sense to me.
Yeah, well, the silver cloud is if you don't like what you do, then you can look around for something better.
Yeah. So you retired after only about 10 years in that, and you were fortunate to be able to financially to do that.
Yeah.
But then tell us a little bit about your first contact with Zen,
Well,
how you came across that. You already had a little inkling of that in Korea, I assume.
yeah, but that had been at rest for years. But part of working for this fella was a lot of stress. Started smoking cigarettes again. I had given them up in the past.
You smoked in the military?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Everybody did.
Well, you grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and all
Tobacco
the men
country.
smoke. You know, you had to be a smoker if you. So anyway, I took this group cessation program, and it had silent meditation and which I enjoyed. So I got to doing a little research on meditation, and you don't get far without saying the word Zen.
Right. Did you say group cessation?
Yeah, smoking cessation.
Oh, smoking cessation.
Quit smoking, and we had, we sat there and looked at all these terrible pictures of bad lungs and people sick, and it was terrible. I still have nightmares about that program.
But it worked.
But that's where I really read about Zen first. And still a couple years later, I was doing some study, reading some, and I ran into the book, the Diamond Sutra, and the Platform Sutra. Both sutras are in the same book. That was by Huey Ning, the sixth patriarch.
Right.
Thank you. You're upstaging me here.
We've just been studying Huineng this month. This month was Huineng's our Monsters of Zen series.
Yeah,
We have a different ancestor in Zen featured every month. The coming month, May, is Master Dogen from Japan.
I thought that was quite a coincidence with my startup and then being up here. But I read that book, and it was like, this really sounds like the truth. This, as close as I've ever heard it, this really is intriguing and sounds, something's right about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got online. There's a Zen Sangha in Jacksonville, Florida, the Jacksonville Zen Sangha, a Rinzai Zen group, and started practicing with them. They were a branch of the Daibazatsu Zendo up in New York, Edo Roshi.
We understand this has something a little bit to do with that. The scroll behind you is by Edo Roshi. It has something to do with Mu, emptiness.
Emptiness.
It was a gift to one of his students, and she gifted it to us.
Well, you may or may not be aware out there, if there's an audience, Edo Roshi he founded the Daibazatsu Zendo.
Daibosatsu means great bodhisattva.
Kongo-ji of the Diamond Sutra.
Diamond Sutra.
Very successful, big time operation. Unfortunately, he got involved with too many of his lady practitioners and got forced out of the group.
Yeah, so Zen doesn't cure everything.
No, I guess men will be men. I guess that's. So I had to find a new teacher, and in the meantime, a friend of mine, Andy Bell, Shuan Andy Bell, had retired to North Carolina and started practicing with the North Carolina Zen Center, Sandy Stewart over in Pittsburgh. And so I went over and met Sandy, and we hit it off very, very well.
I've never met him. About how old was he then?
He had to be, he's a few years older than I am now. So back then he must have been 65, 70,
so he's
something
just
like
a few years older than you.
I understand Sandy went to Nashville for a wedding with our guy in Nashville, who has known Sandy for quite a while.
Yes, our practice leader in Nashville.
Oh,
No, I don't know if he ever practiced with Sandy Stewart, but they're acquaintances at least. Yeah.
so I practiced with Sandy for 6 or 7 years, and would you believe he got forced out of his own group that he founded, not because of women, but because of disagreements with the board of directors over the direction that Sangha was to take.
Yeah.
Sandy
Where-
was a very traditional Zen Buddhist. He started when he was 18 years old in California. Joshu Roshi was his teacher.
Yeah, there's the authoritarian model that we've inherited from the countries of origin, particularly Japan, doesn't go over very well in a culture that has the cult of the individual and all opinions are equal, democracy, so forth. So we're not immune to that kind of conflict in Zen. And we've seen some disputes like that between boards and the leadership. We divide it up very simply here. The board of directors is in charge of the container. The abbot, guiding teacher, and the priests are in charge of the content. So it's a little bit like we're the faculty, and the board of directors sort of runs the university, if you will. We've tried to maintain that kind of a separation of responsibilities. It's not clear cut. You can't absolutely divide. But yeah, so far so good. We've had a couple of mutinies on the Bounty here.
Well,
We survived.
I still love Sandy Stewart. He's one of my favorite people, and he has started up a new operation there, I understand, in Pittsburgh.
That's what happens. You get a splinter group, and
Yeah.
you end up with.
Except he's a splinter this time.
So how long did that last?
That was another 6 or 7 years.
And you were in North Carolina still, or you were back in Jacksonville?
I was in Jacksonville.
But you were going back and forth?
And email with Sandy. But I was going up to 2 sessions a year and staying in close contact.
So at that time, you didn't have a group in Jacksonville as such?
There was still that Jacksonville Zen Sangha, and I had tried to practice there, and there was just some lack of karmic affinity.
And they were part of Ado's group?
Yeah.
Were they an extension of Ado's group?
Yeah. So I had to, when Sandy left, I had to start looking for a new teacher. And so I Googled again, and sure enough, there was the Jacksonville Soto Zen meditation group that meets at the Unitarian Church there. Roger Cochran and his wife, Dorothy Merrill, started that program.
Merrick.
Dorothy Merrick. Yeah. Sorry, Dorothy, if you're listening. Started that program 5 or 6 years ago, and he planted the seeds in Jacksonville. And
Roger Sagetz is his name. He'd practiced here for many, many years before he and Dorothy moved to Jacksonville. And he had attempted to set up a sitting group here out near where he lived at that time, somewhere on the north side, which didn't work out very well. It's not an easy thing to do. Yeah. And in many cases, we go directly to the local Unitarian Church and see if there's a possibility that they will host a startup group. And they're usually very welcoming and interested.
I think Roger's down in Peachtree City now trying to start up a group. So if any of you all are near Peachtree City, he's trying to form a group there. And I always, owe a debt of gratitude to Roger and Dorothy for whatever karmic reasons they were in my path. And through them, I met Sensei. And now, how long have we been together? 3 or 4 years now. Time flies. And I feel very comfortable with my relationship with Sensei. It's, I think, pretty well cemented itself over the years.
It takes time to build trust and be on the same page. Ours is a very American style of Zen, which is not very monastic, not very traditional. We do follow monastic traditions, especially during longer retreats. So bring us up to date, bring us up to present. We just finished your Shukkei Tokudo. Shukkei means leaving home. We don't literally leave home in a lay practice lineage or sangha. And you're married, you have a wife and at least a cat and a dog that I know of.
Cat and dog, 2 sons, a granddaughter.
Granddaughter living with you.
Grandson.
Grandson. We just visited Jacksonville last week and two so ago, and had your black robe priesthood ceremony, Shuke Tokudo ceremony there. And I really I know you're very appreciative of Roger and Dorothy, but I wanted to congratulate you on being able to step in and take over that group. Often when a practice leader leaves, it just falls apart. And so that's a testament to your skills and your tact and being able to manage people. By the way, I do want to say for the audience that it's not all middle-aged white guys or old white guys like us. We have a lot of young people, and we have a lot of gender diversity, racial, ethnic diversity in Zen. So don't get the wrong impression. Look at some of our other interviews.
Actually, our group in Jacksonville been very fortunate. It's grown pretty substantially over the last 3 years. We've had about half and half women now participating. At first, it was pretty much all old white guys and, Dorothy. But we've got, like you said, very diverse. We have 3 or 4 folks that sit regularly of other cultures.
So tell us about some of the issues you run into there. We understand that the pastor of the church recently resigned, and that kind of caused a big schism, or there was already a schism, and that's part of why he resigned, something like that. We don't need to know all the gory details, but it's important for people to understand, I think, that Zen is not kind of a rose-colored glasses approach to reality, to life. We're always dealing with the fly in the ointment. We're always dealing with the problems that arise. And around here, we've been through enough turmoil over the years. We've been open since 1977 is when we incorporated. So 2017, we passed our 40th anniversary. We've been in this location since 2000. And sometimes it's been touch and go, but the ones who are committed just say it's just keeping the doors open. We're providing a place for people to practice. As long as we keep the doors open and people can come and practice, we're doing good. So tell us a little bit about the turmoil, what it's meant to you personally, and how you managed it.
Yeah, the turmoil at the church. I'm not a member of the church, and they let us share. We have to pay for it, of course. Space there at the church. So I've intentionally avoided taking sides or being involved in it. It was again a dispute within the board of directors as to whether they liked the preacher or not, and whether they were interfering with his management abilities within the church. And he got so frustrated, according to a letter he published openly, so I'm not talking behind his back here. He got so fed up with him, he said, "I just don't need this anymore," and left. Mm-hmm. As far as our Sangha is concerned, we really have difficulty attracting younger people. We really would like to get more younger people in. Mm-hmm. I haven't really been successful doing that.
Well, is Jacksonville pretty much a retirement community?
No, Jacksonville is the exception to Florida. We don't have the Spanish influence of South Florida, and we don't have the retirement influence of West Florida, and we don't have the tourist influence of, say, Orlando and that. Uh-huh. Orlando's got more bedrooms in it than New York City now.
Wow. So what does happen in Jacksonville? What is the kind of, what keeps it going? It's military for one thing?
We got one of the largest Baptist churches in the United States. That's 28,000 active members.
And I assume that doesn't help you any.
No, it's hard to recruit those Baptists. No, Peace Baptist. We got 2 military bases. Yeah, military. We got Mayo Clinic. We've got several large medical facilities.
It's a beautiful town, I think. Beautiful city.
Yeah.
The part you live in is very much like an island. St. Simon's Island has.
The worst problem I've had internally, I was wanting to touch on, was we try not to have any rules, as few as possible.
I mean, within your
group? Within our little group.
Yeah.
we have about 15 active people. We have about 25 people that are on the books and come occasionally.
Regulars.
Yeah, but about 15 that are really there. But one of the things we've insisted on is trying to maintain this idea of a harmonious Sangha.
Yeah.
And so one of the few rules that we have implemented is that we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about the current president. We don't talk about the candidate who didn't win. So we had one of our members.
I understand in barbershops, they say no religion, no politics. Keep the barbershop harmonious.
We had one of our members, good member, who started soliciting for a petition to support one of the candidates. And
within your group?
Yeah. And some way he even got our mailing list and sent it to this outside organization that started blitzing us all with sign this petitions. So I called him to task, and while he sat there and agreed with me and apologized, he never came back.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I still, to this day, I hate that. I wish there's some way I can make up, but I'm not going to pursue him.
And Zen, well, we say that. Sokayan, the Rinzai priest who settled in New York in the mid-30s, he had a motto hanging on his place that said, "Those who come here are welcomed, those who leave are not pursued." We try to follow that motto as well. But also, just to your point, capping point on that, in Zen, I think it's a mistake for us to associate with cause of the day, even if it's something like the death penalty that you personally sympathize with or you'd want to do away with and so forth, because there's always another side of that story. They're the victims of people who've been killed and so forth. But what are you doing for them if you're doing this for, right? And so it's a very difficult world peace. Of course, there's some almost, mom and apple pie kind of causes that nobody could disagree with. But I think what we're doing is we're training people to be independently capable of making those judgment calls by their training in Zen. So in my perspective, we're training armies of people who can go out and do the right thing. But for us to take the position of telling them what the right thing is, I think is completely opposite of Zen. So before we turn to questions, you have any closing comments you'd like to make, or something generally you'd like to say to our audience about Zen, why they might take an interest in it?
Well, I do want to say we encourage our people to be socially active, just not within the Sangha. It's a place of refuge to get away from all that noise that's out there in the world. The only words I would have about Zen is that if you haven't tried it, it's a question whether you can define it as a religion, but it's a practice of experience. What you experience and not what somebody tells you. It's not written in a book. We don't have an outside authority, a deity telling us
Bible. We don't have a Bible.
No Bible. So it's what we observe and what we experience. And so the only way to really learn about Zen is to go somewhere and find you a teacher and sit and see if you like it or not. I believe the Buddha said, try what I teach, and if you don't like it, try something different.
Yeah.
Or words to that effect.
Yeah.
Which, can you imagine a preacher saying that?
No. And we also say, find a teacher you do not agree with or does not agree with you. So if you find somebody who's just reinforcing all of your own ideas already, what do you got to learn there? So you want to find somebody who challenges you. So with that, let's turn it over to see if we have any questions from the audience. For Ungan, Bill?
What was your religious background like before Buddhism? Did you have any participation in any church or?
No, I grew up in a very conservative Southern Protestant religion and rebelled against it at a very early age and never affiliated again with a church.
That's interesting because sometimes when you hear about people rebelling against the church, it feels like a modern thing. It's hard to imagine people doing it in the 50s.
50s is pretty modern.
Yeah.
Hey, we're right here.
Yeah.
So I have a brother-in-law who is a missionary, retired missionary now in Taiwan. My sister's been there. They've been there for 50 years or so, and my niece is a missionary there. So I don't have anything against Christians. I support it. I think it's good for the Christian ethic is something needed within American society. But I'm not, just don't want to be part of the organization.
Through all of this up and down of circumstance, back and forth, ebb and flow of circumstance, what kept drawing you back to practice?
I never left practice. Once I got started, at age 55, I have been able, being retired, I've been able to devote serious attention to my practice and to reading, perhaps too much reading. I've started donating my books away now, which you got some up here to still work on. But it's never let me down. I've always hung in there pretty well, even though some of my teachers have come and gone. That would, but that's life. Dukkha,
Dukkha, suffering,
stress,
change.
strife, suffering.
So, anything further?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Not that I think of.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for appearing on ZENtalk.
Thank you for having me, Sensei.
Perhaps we'll have you back at a later date when you're wiser, older and wiser. If we
Better
all
not
live,
wait too long.
we all live long enough. And I just invite everybody to keep tuning in. If you don't like tonight's show, there will be a different one next week, or last week will be different. It's all generally the same question, the same practice path. How, how did you get into this and what's important about it? And we're trying to differentiate Zen in particular from other forms of popular meditation, such as mindfulness meditation. And at less than book length, it's a little difficult to draw those distinctions. But I think from people just seeing different personalities come on the show and talk about their personal path, their personal experience, it'll become pretty clear that there's something unique about Zen. So thanks again. Any questions online tonight?
Not tonight.